here we are again. Welcome back. Today I am working on a little bit different of a project. If you know me, you know I have a lot of scraps. You know I have a lot of fabric in the sewing room and I am ready to organize it. A lot of people look at organizing like, ugh, I don't like doing that. I'm weird in that aspect because I do like doing that. I like organizing it. I like having it ready so that if I have 30 minutes at the end of a day, I want to come in here and I want to sew. I don't want to spend my time cleaning or organizing or trying to look for something that I don't know where it is. And right now, we're to the point of where I'm having to look to see where something is because, well, I haven't taken the time to slow down and organize it. So that's what I'm doing today. And I want to show you how I'm doing it and what I'm doing to organize mainly the scraps. I am doing some other organizing in here as well, like this drawer. I've got little containers in this drawer with like bobbins and such like that in it. I'll be organizing that too at some point today, but the main project today is scraps. You know I love scraps. There's a lot in here. We're gonna organize them, figure out the best way to store them. So let's get started. First things first is this cabinet that sits behind me at the sewing table. It's got 3 drawers in it, and used to, all 3 of these drawers were scraps. But I got to thinking it was kind of a waste because it's just scraps and it's right behind me. I need to be able to get to something to be able to use it. So I've changed this out. So my top drawer are projects. So this right here is fabric that was in my list of stuff to do. I don't know what I had planned for it. It was a layer cake and a charm pack. I don't know what I had planned for it because it's probably 10 to 15 years old. Then this kind of coincided with it. It was a charm pack, and some of them blend and some of them don't, but I've just put them here for right now. Actually, I think I'm gonna take those out. But here is a charm pack and a layer cake. I don't know what I'll do with it, but it's a project I can start, so I'm putting it here. Then this right here, these are the half square triangles that we just started in the Quilting Corner episode from a few days ago. So I'm putting those here. These are charm pack squares that we were using to cut these to make these half square triangles. So these are the pieces that I haven't cut into this yet. So I'm just going to leave them here. I'm going to cut them as I get a few minutes here and there, and I'll make some more of these until this gives me enough to make a quilt. So when I have enough to make the quilt, then I'll start using these leftover charm packs for some other project. I don't know what that'll be yet. So that's what that is. And we're leaving that drawer as is right now. I think we're done with that one. This drawer is just bags of projects I had started. If you remember, not long ago I did a Irish chain quilt. I had found a bag with some little 2.5 inch squares and I made an Irish chain with it. So I loved that quilt so much that I might do that with this as well. I'm not sure yet, but these were the same as those other ones, but already cut into 2.5 inch squares. And then it had some big pieces, I guess, left over. Again, not sure what I was doing with that, but it's gonna turn into something pretty. Same thing with this. They were still cut the same way, the 2.5 inch squares. At one point in my life, I must have really liked 2.5 inch squares because I have a lot of them. But those are gonna turn into quilt projects there. I had to move you down so you could see it. You couldn't even see my project. So these are the 2 packages that I just told you about that I'm going to turn into something pretty here shortly. Not sure what. This was a bag, and all of them, again, 2.5 inch squares. Some of these might be able to go together into one quilt. It'll definitely be more than one quilt in total. So that's what that is. This is a little embroidery project I'm working on that I'm not quite finished with yet. So it's right here. And this is a project that I had started. I had already cut the pieces, and this is what it's gonna be. There's going to be this, and then like that. So we'll put those together into another quilt. So I've got multiple projects. So instead of scraps back here, I've changed it into now what's going to be projects. So if I come in here and I have an hour that I can work and I want to get straight to work, I can reach into this cabinet and pull out something and get started. I don't yet know what these projects are going to be. I'll figure that out here soon and make a note and put it in the bag so that I won't ever have a question again of what it's going to be. I'll put a pattern with it or notes with it or something telling me what to do with that. Then I've got another drawer. This drawer has those squares that we recently acquired that I'm going to put into a quilt. So I've got them there ready to go. These are the squares from our Quilting Corner monthly block that we're making into a quilt. And then this is my project, the bloom quilt that I'm working on, that I'm not yet finished. So I've got all these in here and ready to grab at a moment's notice, get started on a project and go to work. So now let's figure out scraps. All these drawers were full of scraps. Now we have to figure out what to do with them and where to put them. To get started, I have dumped out a container that I had full of scraps. They're all different states of scraps. They're small scraps, big scraps, chunks that I can cut into fat quarters or something like that. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to take them and kind of divvy them out size-wise. So I know this one right here, not so much that one. Well, kind of. The bigger pieces. I'm going to pull the bigger pieces out and lay them to the side. I'm going to take the middle-sized pieces and put them in a stack. So once I kind of get this organized, this whole stack, well, once I get this organized, then we'll go from there as far as what to do with each stack. Most of mine look to be like the middle-sized. I think just about all mine are middle-sized. I'm going to put my white over by itself because I use a lot of white as background, so I want to keep it separated. Here's some little squares that we had used for a project, and we way overestimated the need for those squares. So I'll put those in a stack. The stacks you make is kind of just based on what you've got most, how you use yours. So I've got a lot of white I'm putting over here. There's a big chunk. And then lo and behold, here we go again. Again, some kind of problem I've got with 2.5 squares, I guess. Look at all these extra 2.5 inch squares. All are 2.5 inch squares. These are the same prints that I used in that most recent Irish chain quilt. So because those are the 2.5 inch squares, and I know they are, I'm going to put them behind me in that drawer that has some of the 2.5 inch squares in bags, like this right here. They're all 2.5 inch. These are all 2.5 inch. I'm gonna put them at the top of that bag because they're not the same fabric line, but some of them will probably blend. So I'm still putting them in there because they're all the same size. So we got that gone. Whew, feel like we've done a lot already. Not really, we have yet to begin. So here's all my little scraps. Not very many little scraps. Oh, here's a few more. I've got mostly middle-sized scraps. So I've got a stack over here of fat quarters, and they all go together. They are a set. So I'm going to put them behind here because while I don't know what I'm going to use them for, they are a set. They do go together. These are a fat quarter bundle that I broke up. It is the Jubilee line by Tilda. I love this line. So what I decided to do with this one is I broke it up because, well, I wanted to see what it looked like opened more so than anything, how big they were and that kind of thing. These are fat eighths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tote, basically, not a purse, but a tote. I'm going to make a tote with these, and then anything left over, which should be a good chunk of this, will turn into a quilt. Don't know what one yet, but again, another project I'm adding to my stack. So I'm going to put these back here because I have a plan for them. I just haven't done it yet. But I will say that plan is starting tomorrow. So I am going to work on them very, very soon. And I do know the tote that I'm doing with it. I know how I'm going to make that tote. So anything extra will be put in a bag and put aside for another quilt down the line, very short line, because very soon will I make that one. And I've got these bags that we do sell these at the shop, but I do put these in specific projects, like my embroidery projects will go in these. That, when I get done with my tote, anything left over from that Tilda line will go in here with a note saying what I'm making with it and the pattern or where to find the pattern, that kind of thing. So I will organize that like that. Then all these extra pieces are sort of big, and here's where we get to the chunk of what to do with it. So I'm going to put the other things away so that I can get to this one. Oh, here's a few more charm packs. I'm going to put the charm packs in a stack with the charm packs that were up here that we were making the half square triangles with. So I'll put them in there. Then what I do, then everybody's different. You can do whatever you want to do with them. They're your scraps. But I love scraps, and I love doing stuff with scraps. But I don't like coming in here and finding, what do I do with this? So I've got to make a plan on what to do with it. And how I handle that is this. I go with, like, these are my big pieces over here, the stack. Well, that I'm probably going to make into fat quarters. And I can do something down the line with that. If I cut it into a fat quarter, then I know maybe down the line I come across a fat quarter pattern that I like. If some of these fabrics will go into that quilt with whatever other fabric I'm using, great, it's already cut into a fat quarter. And since it's a big piece, that's really the biggest cut I keep as a chunk here at the house. But I do keep these and cut them into things like this. We had these, or I had these, they were probably, well, I had made a quilt, and it's in the bedroom. It's a king size quilt. Well, this was what was left over from that fat quarter bundle that I had used that for the quilt. And what it is I had strips that were about this big on the end of each fat quarter that I didn't need. I used the rest of every fat quarter in the bundle. It was a big bundle. I used the rest of all of that, but I didn't need these. So what I cut them into was 5-inch squares, because you can easily find a pattern for a fat quarter quilt, a jelly roll quilt, a layer cake quilt, a charm pack quilt. So the easiest thing for me to do is to cut these pieces into those sizes. That's why I cut my big ones into fat quarters. That's why I'll cut this into a charm pack. Because if I had cut them into jelly rolls, I would have been wasting a little bit extra fabric on it. I could make more out of it by turning them into charm packs. So that's what these are. So I'll put these aside into, actually I'll just put them back in this tote. This will be all my charm packs. And then I'll take these and I'll go one by one. And this is what takes a little bit of time, but when you're done with it, it is so worth the effort. Because when you come in here and you're tired after a long day and you just want to sit for 20 minutes and do something fun and productive in the sewing room, now you can, because it's all ready for you. You don't have to sit and do what I'm doing now. Although I'm that weirdo that likes doing this kind of thing. So a lot of people don't, I do. So I'm going to take this. This is one piece, and it's pretty flat and straight anyway. But I'm going to take it and I'm going to cut off the very end of it to make it straight. I've got it lined up on my cutting mat, and I'm going to cut this into charm packs. So I'm going to put it on the mat lined up. I'm going to go over to my 5-inch, because a charm pack is a 5-inch square. So I'm going to cut that into a 5-inch square, and we'll lay that to the side. Open this up. My ends are already meeting, so I'm going to line it up with the mat. Cut this into a 5-inch square. Do the same thing again. I could have just left it there and cut at the 10-inch mark, but I didn't think about that. So I'm going to cut that. So now from this one strip, I'm going to have 5 5-inch squares. But what that leaves me, hold on, this is my 5-inch squares. I'm putting them in this box with all my other 5-inch squares. What it leaves me is this right here. Well, you know me, I'm not gonna throw it away. This right here, especially this one, is perfect for a strip quilt. And I have a strip quilt going. I don't know if you can see it you can't see it in here, but I'll show it to you. It's over in the side over here hanging up that I'm working on. That will be perfect for a strip quilt. So now I've got this. It's not big enough for a charm pack. It's not, well, I could make it into a jelly roll strip, but I could either make it into a jelly roll strip, or I can leave it like this and use it into my strip quilt. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave this like it is, make another stack over here, go to my next piece. And then if I can get enough pieces like this, which I know I will, I'll have great pieces for my strip quilt. This one is gonna be too thick too wide for a strip quilt, in my opinion. So I'll cut it down when the time comes, but I'll have to decide at that point how small I want to cut it down. Probably straight down the middle and make 2 good sized strips for my strip quilt. But right now is not the time for that. That'll go in my strip quilt bag. So that's in the strip quilt bag, that's in the charm pack bag, and we're on to our next piece. I'm gonna keep doing this through all of these scraps. I'm gonna make a charm pack set. If I have enough, I'll make some layer cake sets. But my main set, big pieces would be fat quarters, smaller pieces would be charm packs. But depending on what I find in these stacks is what I'll make, whether it's a charm pack, whether it's a jelly roll strip, or what. But that's how I'm going to organize these. Once I get them organized and stacks made, like all the charm packs, all the fat quarters, that kind of thing, then I'll start putting them into tubs and going from there. Behind the camera, you can't see it right now, but behind here is another cabinet of nothing but scraps. When I get done with this table, I'm going to dump that table onto this table and start over. And these sets will go into that tub, so that by the time I get done, that container back there will be perfect cuts, already cut. Charm packs, jelly roll strips, fat quarters, layer cakes, everything's ready. And if you don't know, by the way, a layer cake is a 10-inch square, a charm pack is a 5-inch square, a fat quarter is 18 by 22 inches, a fat eighths is 9 by 22 inches, so I could do some of those too, and a charm pack is 5-inch square. So that's what I'm cutting these into, so that when I do come back in here and I'm ready to make something, and I hopefully have these drawers empty because those projects are already done, I've got stuff to pull from, stuff to make. And I love a scrappy quilt. My favorite of all time is a scrappy quilt, so that's where I'll have fun. But for right now, today's the day I am getting it ready.
Well, I'm done with that stack of fabrics. I have plenty more to do, but I know you get the gist of it. I want to show you what I've gotten from just that big clump of fabric that was all different sizes. This was my charm pack set that I was going to put together. You know, the tub I was filling. Well, it's full. So all of these are charm packs. So now all of these are cut to 5-inch squares. So now that they're all cut in 5-inch squares, you remember this project we worked on the other day, the half square triangles, out of scraps? Well, these were the only charm packs I had at the time. Now these can go in here, and all of these are charm packs that I can turn into half square triangles for that project. And with it being right behind me right here, and I've got this set right here, I just pull this tub out and I start making half square triangles. And that's as easy as that. I have 30 minutes at the end of the day or the beginning of the day or whatever. I have a project I can get started on. Don't have to think about it. I just come in here and sew. So there's one set. Now this tub down here was what I was putting the scraps in. So here's all my strips. They're scraps, but they're strips. They're all cut into strips of different width. So you've got, let's see, you've got this width, you've got skinny, all different sizes, so that I can do the quilt that I showed you just a little bit ago for the strip quilt. That's what this will be for. So if I want to do a strip quilt square one day, I just pull this tub out and I get to working from that tub of scraps to making that. I didn't get a lot of fat quarters. I actually only got 2 that were big enough to make a fat quarter from. I do have, well, a stack here that I forgot about that might be big enough for fat quarters. That's what I'm gonna run over to the cutting table over here, and I'm gonna see if those are big enough for fat quarters. And if they are, I'll put them there. If they're not, I'll put them in one of these tubs. And that's as easy as that. Now my scraps will be organized. I do have more to go through. It'll be a long process. I know you don't want to sit through all that, but this is the idea of what I'm doing. This is how I'm organizing my scraps so that I can just come in here on a whim one day and start working. So I hope this helped.
I hope you learned something as far as how I organize. Maybe it helped you, maybe it didn't. But if it did, I hope it did. If you have any other ideas of how to organize, how to move things around in your craft room, how to use up scraps, let me know. I am open to suggestions. If there's more ways that I don't know about, I like learning too. So shoot them down in the comments and I'll be excited to read those. But until next time, I'm going to keep going. It looks like I'll be here for quite a while. I'm going to keep going, working on these, and next time you will come back and see an organized craft room with scraps organized and ready to be used. I forgot to show you the strip quilt I was referring to. So this is the strip quilt that I'm adding strip pieces to make a bigger quilt. Right now it's not big enough. I do have a lot of strips. I just haven't gotten to finish it yet, but I will. But that's what a strip quilt is that I'll use the smaller strips for.
One more thing I wanted to add is I save selvages. I am going to put them together into a project, and I just save it like this because look how pretty these selvage edges are. Some of them have little designs. See, that has the color chart that's in it. They all have that, but some of them have like pretty little flowers on the end or little sewing machines, lots of different things on the end of the selvage. And when you put them together, they can make a project. So I don't throw these out either. I have started saving these. I haven't been saving them all that long. We had a customer came in that had a tote, and her tote bag was so adorable. And it was nothing but selvages. And I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. So we have started saving these. We've been saving them for several months now, but we do have a big chunk of these that we're gonna turn into a tote as well. And there's other projects you can do with them, but what we're going to start with is a tote. So stay tuned for that one. But don't throw them away.
You guys have a great rest of your day, and until next time, happy quilting.